Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today, inshallah, we're going to solve Cambridge exam, February-March 2022, paper 22. Let's start it. Question 1. Which gas has the fastest rate of diffusion? We know that the rate of diffusion is inversely proportionate with the molecular mass. The gas that has the lowest molecular mass has the fastest rate of diffusion. Here, I calculated the molecular mass for all of these gases. We can see that hydrogen has the lowest molecular mass, so it will have the fastest rate of diffusion. Question 2. In which state does 1 decimeter cube of methane contain the most particles? He wants to know in which physical state methane will have the highest number of particles in the same volume, which is 1 decimeter. It will be when methane is a gas at 100 degrees Celsius, or when it's a gas at room temperature, liquid, or when it's a solid. Of course, the answer will be when it is a solid, because in a solid the particles are closely packed, tightly packed together, so we will have the highest number of particles in the same volume, which is 1 decimeter. Question 3. Which statement explains why isotopes of the same element have the same chemical properties? Isotopes have the same electronic structure and the same outer shell electron, and because electrons are only involved in chemical reactions, so they will determine the chemical properties. The answer is A. Question 4. The electronic structure of atoms B and Q are shown. As we can see from the electronic structure of B, it has 6 outer electrons, so it's in group 6. It's non-metal. It forms an ion, negative ion of a charge -2. Q has electronic structure 281, so it's a metal in group 1. It will form an ion of a positive charge +1. To know the formula of the ionic compound formed between B and Q, we will just exchange the charges between them. As we can see, the formula will be BQ2, and the answer is D. Question 5. Fermentation sugar produces a mixture of ethanol solution and solid yeast. How is the solid yeast removed from the mixture? To remove the solid from a solution, this needs filtration. Filtration is a process used to remove insoluble solid from a solution, so the answer is C. Question 6. Which row explains why copper is a good conductor of electricity at room temperature? Copper is a metal, so it has a metallic crystal in which the positive ions arranged in rows surrounded by a sea of delocalized or free electrons. So what makes copper conduct electricity is the free moving electrons and not the ions. The ions are fixed in the lattice, they cannot move, and the electrons, which are free, they can conduct electricity. So here the answer will be B. Question 7. Which pair of statement about diamond and graphite is correct? Diamond and graphite both are pure carbon. They are both macromolecule. This statement is correct. Diamond and graphite made only from carbon, and they are both macromolecule. So the answer is A. B is wrong because diamond cannot be used as electrode because diamond cannot conduct electricity. C is also wrong because graphite is not ionic compound. And D is wrong because graphite has high melting point and not low melting point. As we can see, the red part represents the wrong part. Question 8. Sodium nitrite contains the nitride ion N-3. Sodium nitrite is unstable. It decomposes into its elements. As we know, sodium nitrite, sodium has positive charge. It's in group 1. It forms an ion of +1 charge. Nitride ion has -3 charge. So the formula will be Na3N. The element contributes in forming sodium nitride is sodium and nitrogen. So we will search for an equation in which sodium nitrite decomposes to form sodium and nitrogen gas. And then correct balance for the equation. So the answer is B. Here we have 2 multiplied by 3. It's 6 for sodium and 2 for nitrogen. The correct answer is B. Question 9. Compound X contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen only. By mass, it contains 26.7% carbon and 2.2 hydrogen. What is the empirical formula of X? First, we want to know the percentage of oxygen because it's only contain carbon and hydrogen and oxygen. So the percentage of oxygen will be 100 minus carbon and hydrogen. It will be 71.1%. Then we will know the empirical formula by dividing each one by its relative atomic mass. The percentage of carbon, 26.7, divide by 12, which is the relative atomic mass of carbon. For hydrogen, divide by 1, and the percentage of oxygen, divide by 16. We have three numbers, 2.2, 2.2 also for hydrogen, and 4.4 for oxygen. We will divide the three numbers by the lowest number, which is 2.2. The ratio will be 1 to 1 to 2. So the empirical formula is 1 for carbon, 1 for hydrogen, and 2 for oxygen, CHO2. The answer is D. Question 10. Cesium fluoride is an ionic compound. Which statements about cesium fluoride are correct? It conducts electricity when it is solid. This is a wrong statement because ionic compound can conduct electricity only when they are molten or in aqueous solution. They cannot conduct electricity when they are solid because the ions are fixed in their position in the lattice and they cannot move. It has high melting point. This is correct statement. High melting point is one of the properties of ionic compound. It is soluble in water. This is also correct statement. It is highly volatile. This is a wrong statement because highly volatile means low boiling point, and ionic compound has high boiling point. So here only we have number 2 and 3 only correct statements, and the answer will be C. Question 11. Which diagram shows the direction of movement of ions and electrons during the electrolysis of molten sodium chloride? We have molten sodium chloride, so only the ions are sodium +1 and chloride -1. Because sodium has a positive charge, it will be attracted to the cathode, and chloride ions will be attracted to the anode. So the direction of ions in the solution has to be sodium ions directed to the cathode, as we can see the arrow here, and the chloride ions directed toward the anode. And for the direction of electrons, sodium ions accept electrons from the cathode. So the direction of electrons should be from the cathode to sodium, as we can see the arrow here. And chloride ions lose electron at the anode, so the direction of electrons should be from the chloride ions to the anode up to the outer circuit. Take care here in this diagram, they have the same direction of arrow, but they reverse the position of cathode and anode. Here, the same arrows, but the direction of electrons from the cathode and anode are reversed. And here, the direction of sodium to the anode is wrong. Of course, sodium will be attracted to the cathode. The only diagram is correct is A. Question 12. Calcium carbonate react with dilute hydrochloric acid to produce carbon dioxide. The equation for the reaction is shown. The relative formula mass of calcium carbonate is 100. 10 grams of calcium carbonate is reacted with an excess dilute hydrochloric acid. Which mass of carbon dioxide is produced? Here I have two information. First one, we have 10 grams of calcium carbonate reacted. Second one, the relative formula mass of calcium carbonate is 100. So we can calculate the number of moles of calcium carbonate, the mass divided the molecular mass, 10 divide 100, so we have 0.1 mole of calcium carbonate. Then we will use the ratio from equation. Number of moles of calcium to number of moles of calcium carbonate to number of moles of carbon dioxide is 1 to 1. So carbon dioxide has the same number of moles of calcium carbonate, which is 0.1. Number of moles of carbon dioxide is the same as the number of moles of calcium carbonate, which is 0.1. Number of moles equal to the mass, divide the molecular mass, and the molecular mass of carbon dioxide is 44. To know the mass of carbon dioxide, we will multiply 0.1 by 44, so the answer will be 4.4 gram. The answer is C. Question 13. Molten sodium chloride and concentrated aqueous sodium chloride are electrolyzed using platinum electrodes. Which are the product at the negative electrode at the cathode in each electrolysis? In case of molten sodium chloride, we have only sodium ions and chloride ions. But in case of concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, we have also H and OH because the presence of water. Here he wants only the product at the negative electrode, only at the cathode. So in case of molten sodium chloride, sodium has a positive charge, so it will be attracted at the cathode. The answer for molten sodium chloride will be sodium. And in case of concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, we have hydrogen ions, so it will be attracted to the cathode rather than sodium ions, because sodium is highly reactive metal, tend to stay as ions in solution, and it will not discharge in the presence of hydrogen. So the answer here will be hydrogen. Concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, hydrogen gas will be discharged at the cathode, and the answer is C. Question 14. An object is electroplated with silver using an aqueous silver salt as electrolyte. Which row is correct? The object to be electroplated should be placed at the cathode. We know always when we electroplate something, it should be placed at the cathode, and the other electrode is anode made from the same metal of the electrolyte, which is silver. Here we have electrolyte silver salt, so the anode should be made from silver, and the answer is D. Question 15. Which row describes the change that occur in endothermic reaction? In endothermic reaction, the energy is taken from the surrounding, and the temperature of the reaction will decrease. So the answer is C. Question 16. Which statement about fuel is correct? Heat energy is only produced when burning fuels. This is of course a wrong statement, because we have also light energy and sometimes sound energy. So not only heat produced when we are burning fuel. Second, hydrogen is used as a fuel, although it is difficult to store. Yes, one of the disadvantages of hydrogen that is it is difficult to store, but still used as fuel. So B is correct. Methane is a good fuel because it produces only water when it burns. Methane is a hydrocarbon, and all hydrocarbons produce carbon dioxide and water when it burns, so statement C is wrong. D, uranium is burned in air to produce energy. Uranium is never burned, so statement D is also wrong, and the answer is B. Question 17. Which statement about the endothermic and the exothermic reaction is correct? In case of exothermic and endothermic reaction, the delta H, the energy of the change of the reaction equal to the energy absorbed in bond breaking minus the energy released in bond forming. In case of endothermic reaction, this delta H value is positive, so the energy absorbed is higher than the energy released. Here in statement 1, less energy is absorbed, so this is a wrong statement. In case of B, the endothermic reaction, the activation energy is always higher than the exothermic reactions. This is of course a wrong statement. C, in the exothermic reaction, more energy is absorbed in bond breaking than it is released. In case of exothermic reaction, the delta H is negative, so the energy absorbed should be less than the energy released. So this is also a wrong statement. In an exothermic reaction, the reactants are at higher energy level on the energy level diagram than the product. Here I have the energy diagram for the exothermic and the endothermic reaction. In case of exothermic, the reactant at higher energy level than the product, so energy is released. And in case of endothermic reaction, the reactant at lower energy level than the product, so energy is absorbed. This is for endothermic. So here the only correct statement is D. In the exothermic reaction, the reactants are higher on the energy level diagram than the products. Question 18. The reaction used to manufacture ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen is reversible. An equilibrium is established between ammonia and nitrogen and hydrogen. Which statement describes the equilibrium? Equilibrium, both the forward and backward reaction have the same rate. Of course, A is the answer. Question 19. How does increasing the concentration affect the reacting particles in a chemical reaction? Concentration will increase the number of particles present in the same volume, so this will increase the rate of collision. But of course, it will not increase the proportion of particles which having the energy higher than or equal to the activation energy. Concentration will affect only the number of collision, and it will not affect the activation energy, so the answer is A. Question 20. Methyl orange is added to dilute hydrochloric acid and to aqueous sodium hydroxide. What is the color of methyl orange in each solution? Methyl orange, when it is neutral, it's orange. When it's in acid media, it's red. And when it's in an alkaline media, it's yellow. So here, it will be red in dilute hydrochloric acid and yellow in case of sodium hydroxide. Question 22. Information about some silver compound is shown. We have the silver carbonate, the formula, and the solubility, which is insoluble, silver chloride, insoluble, silver nitrate soluble, and silver oxide is insoluble. Which equation shows a reaction which cannot be used to make silver salt? Reaction of silver nitrate with hydrochloric acid to form silver chloride, which is a precipitate. This correct equation. Silver oxide with nitric acid, acid and base, it's a neutralization reaction. It will form salt, which is silver nitrate. Silver carbonate react with acid. Carbonate with the acid form salt, water, and carbon dioxide. So this is a correct equation also. Which one cannot be used? Last equation, silver with hydrochloric acid, because silver is lower in the reactivity series than hydrogen. It is less reactive than hydrogen, so it will not displace, or it cannot displace the hydrogen of the acid. So this reaction cannot happen and cannot produce silver chloride as a precipitate, or cannot be used to prepare silver chloride salt. Question 23. Aqueous ethanoic acid is a weak acid. Aqueous sodium hydroxide is a strong base. Aqueous ethanoic acid is neutralized by aqueous sodium hydroxide. Which statement are correct? Aqueous ethanoic acid accepts proton from the hydroxide ions. This is of course a wrong statement, because ethanoic acid is a proton donor, not acceptor. Statement 2. The aqueous ethanoic acid used is fully dissociated into ions. No, it's a weak acid, so it is only partially dissociated. Question 3. The aqueous sodium hydroxide is fully dissociated into ions. Yes, it is fully dissociated because sodium hydroxide is a strong base, so it will be completely or fully ionized. Number 4, the reaction produces a salt and water. It's a neutralization reaction between ethanoic acid and sodium hydroxide, so of course the product will be salt and water. We have statement 3 and 4 are correct, so the answer is D. Question 24. 3 properties of the element X are listed. It contains atoms with full outer shell of electrons, it's a monoatomic, and it is unreactive. So all these properties are for noble gases, group 8 elements in the periodic table. In which part of the periodic table this element is placed? Of course, it will be in group 8. Question 25. Which word equation represent the reaction that will occur? Sodium oxide and carbon. Sodium oxide cannot be reduced by carbon, as sodium is above carbon in the reactivity series. It's more reactive than carbon, so it cannot be reduced by carbon. Second one, sodium oxide and iron. Iron is less reactive than sodium, so it will not displace sodium from its oxide. The third one, iron oxide and copper. Also copper is less reactive than iron, so it will not displace iron from its oxide. Finally, iron oxide plus carbon. Iron is below carbon in the reactivity series, so its oxide can be reduced by carbon. Here the answer will be D. D is the only equation that can occur. Question 26. Which statement about the extraction of aluminium is correct? Aluminium is formed at the cathode during the electrolysis of aluminium oxide. Of course, aluminium form positive ions, so it will be attracted to the cathode during electrolysis. And statement A is the only correct. The answer is A. B is wrong because hematite is not the ore for aluminium. The ore of aluminium is bauxite. C is also wrong because molten cryolite is used to lower the melting point, not to raise the melting point. And Statement D is also wrong because oxygen gain electron at the anode. No, oxygen will lose electron at the anode. So only the answer is A. Question 27. The metal A is mixed with copper to produce brass. Brass is an alloy formed between copper and zinc. So the answer is D. Question 28. The table gives some properties of an element. This element has melting point, which is 3422, so the melting point is high. The appearance of the element is gray. And the appearance of the chloride of this element is dark blue, so this element form colored compound, so it may be a transition metal. Density 192, high density. Electrical conductivity when it's solid, it conducts electricity. It is good conductor, it has gray color, so it's a metal. Form colored compound, so it's a transition metal. Which other property does this element have? Another property for the transition metal is that it can act as a catalyst. Question 29. Ammonia is produced using Haber process. Which row shows the source of raw material and the reaction conditions? The raw materials are nitrogen gas and hydrogen gas. Nitrogen can be obtained from air by fractional distillation of liquid air, and the source of hydrogen is from the hydrocarbon methane. Methane reacts with steam to form hydrogen, and this is the source for hydrogen in the Haber process. And the condition for the Haber process is 450 degrees Celsius and 200 atmospheric pressure, so the answer is C. Question 30. How many species are acting as bases in the reversible reaction? Nitric acid plus water forming hydronium ion and nitrate ion. Base means proton acceptor. In the forward reaction, water accepts proton from nitric acid to form hydronium ion, so water acts as a base in the forward reaction. And in the backward reaction, nitrate ions accept a proton from the hydronium ion and form nitric acid again. So we have two bases in this reaction, and the answer is B. Question 31. The equation for the reaction in the contact process is shown. Sulfur dioxide plus oxygen form sulfur trioxide. What is the catalyst used in this reaction? We have vanadium pentoxide as a catalyst in the contact process. Question 32. Which information about carbon dioxide and methane is correct? Carbon dioxide and methane are both gases contribute in the greenhouse effect, so the answer is B. Question 33. The structure of an ester is shown. What are the names of the carboxylic acid and the alcohol that react together to form this ester? First, we have to divide the ester into two parts. The part that is connected to the C double bond O group is the acid part, and the other part is the alcohol part. Here we have the acid formed from two carbons, so it's ethanoic acid, and the alcohol formed from 3 carbons, so it's propanol. The answer here will be ethanoic acid for the acid part and propane 1-ol for the alcohol part. Question 34. Which statement about lime are correct? Lime is made by heating calcium carbonate, which is limestone. Yes, lime is calcium oxide. When we heat calcium carbonate, which is limestone, it is decomposed into calcium oxide. So heating calcium carbonate is the thermal decomposition equation for calcium carbonate producing calcium oxide, which is lime. The first statement is correct. Lime is used for desulfuration of the gases, like gases produced from the power station has sulfur dioxide gas. It's an acidic gas, so it is neutralized by lime. Statement 2 is also correct. Lime is used to treat alkaline soil. This is wrong statement. Lime is used to treat acidic soil because lime is alkaline, so it will treat acidic soil. The chemical name for lime is calcium oxide. This is a correct statement. So here we have 2 and 4 correct statement, and also 1 is a correct statement. So here we have 1, 2, and 4, and the answer is B. Question 35. Which structure is correctly named? Here we have only structure C, which is correctly named ethanol, 2 carbon, 1 hydroxyl group, so it's ethanol. Here, this one is named as ethanoic acid. We have 3 carbons, so the correct name is propanoic acid. And this one named ethene, this is wrong because it has no double bond. It's formed only between a single bond between its carbon atoms, so it's ethane. And the third one here is propene and not propane. Prop 1 ene, the double bond at the carbon number 1, so it's a propene, not propane. The correct answer is C. Question 36. The structure of part of a polymer is shown. Which monomer can be used to make this polymer? To decide which part is the monomer, you have to search for the point of repetition. Here we have Cl, H, then Cl again. So here, at this part, this is the monomer. The monomer formed from 2 carbons. One have Cl and the other carbon has CH3. So we will remove the continuation bonds and add double bond between the carbon atoms. Here we have this one, the first one can be monomer because the first carbon contain CH3 and the second carbon contain chloride. And for the second one, also have one carbon contains CH3 and the other contain chloride. So the answer could be 1 or 2, and the answer is A. Question 37. Carboxylic acid are made by oxidation of alcohol. Which carboxylic acid is produced from oxidation of ethanol? Ethanol has 2 carbons, so it will produce carboxylic acid with 2 carbons. The answer will be ethanoic acid. Question 38. Propene C3H6 react with bromine in an addition reaction. Which structure represents the product of this reaction? Propene has 3 carbon atoms and it's an alkene, so we have double bond between carbon number 1 and carbon number 2. When we add bromine, we will break the double bond, adding 1 bromine atom in each carbon. So bromine atom should be added on 2 adjacent carbons that were already having the double bond from the beginning, and it is shown here by the red dots. So the correct structure will be as shown here, and the answer will be C. D is wrong because bromine is not added on an adjacent carbon, and B is wrong because bromine added on the same carbon. A is wrong because we only have 1 bromine atom, so the only correct answer is C. Question 39. Which statement about ethanol are correct? Ethanol is used as a solvent. This is a correct statement because ethanol is a good solvent. Ethanol can be made directly from ethane. This is a wrong statement because it can be made directly from ethene. Ethanol is a covalent compound. This is a correct statement. So here we have 1 and 3 are correct, and the answer is C. The final question, question 40. Which diagram represents the structure of nylon? Nylon is made from 2 monomers. The first monomer, as shown here, has a amino group from each side, the same function group from both sides, and the second monomer have carboxylic group on both sides. So here, condensation between these 2 monomers, by removing 1 molecule of water, we will have the structure formed, the amide linkage between the NH and the CO formed here, and repeated between through the structure between the monomers. So as we can see, the correct structure here is C. Here we come to the end of our exam. Comment down below if you have any question. Like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive all the coming updates. Thank you for watching. Wish you all best of luck in your exams.